The Rosetta Stone is one of the most famous objects in the world. Made from a dark grey rock similar to granite and weighing around 1,600 pounds, it contains a lengthy declaration proclaiming the divinity of the 2nd century BC pharaoh Ptolemy V. Yet more than this, the Rosetta Stone provides the key to unlocking thousands of years of ancient Egyptian culture and writing. Without exaggeration, the stone is perhaps the most important artifact in all ancient history. It was made in around 196 BC to mark the anniversary and divine status of the boy king Ptolemy V. The circumstances of Ptolemy's coronation were treacherous. Both his mother and father, the previous king and queen, had been murdered. Violent rebellions had broken out across the country. Egypt was at war with its rivals to the north. The Rosetta Stone describes the ways in which Ptolemy attempted to strengthen his grip on power. It describes the tax cuts he gave to the soldiers in his army and the powerful priest class throughout Egypt. It describes his prowess and victories in war and proclaims him a living god, ever living, beloved of Ptah, the god who maketh himself manifest. Standard fare for ancient Egyptian royal propaganda, yet this proclamation was written and copied in 3 languages: hieroglyphs, Egyptian Demotic, and Ancient Greek. It was the first of its kind to be discovered. Now, at last, and for the first time, Egyptian hieroglyphs could be translated. We had a known text to compare them to. Hieroglyphs were the language of Egypt's pharaohs and, ultimately, that of the gods. Knowledge of how to read and write them was thus kept to a select, powerful few. And by around the 4th century AD, that knowledge was lost. This is a hieroglyphic inscription from the temple complex at Philae, southern Egypt. It is dated to August 394 AD. It is the last known inscription written in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. For most of our recent history then, much of ancient Egyptian culture was unknowable. All those temple inscriptions, the writing on the sarcophagi, on the tomb walls, was completely indecipherable. Until, that is, the Rosetta Stone was found. In 1798, Napoleon invaded Egypt. At this point, Europe was at war, and Napoleon had hoped his occupation would provide the basis for confronting British interests in the Middle East and trade in India. The invasion also marks the origin point of modern Egyptology, because with his troops, Napoleon also brought an army of scientists and scholars, the so-called French savants. Soon the French occupation of Egypt began to hum with activity. Military fortresses were erected, trade links established, antiquities discovered. One such, of course, was the Rosetta Stone, found here in the town of Rashid, later renamed Rosetta. Its importance was quickly recognised, and the stone was immediately seized as a war prize and transported to Cairo. Napoleon himself inspected it, but it was to be one of his last acts in Egypt. He fled back to France soon after, escaping advancing British land forces following Nelson's famous naval victory at the Battle of the Nile. The resulting capitulation of Alexandria established British control over Egypt and surrendered all historic artifacts into the hands of George III. The Rosetta Stone thus made its way back to the British Museum in London, where it has remained ever since. Following the French discovery of the stone, several copies were made and sent out to scholars and museums around the world. The writing in the lower third, the ancient Greek, was swiftly translated, as was the Egyptian Demotic text in the centre. Demotic was the everyday language of commerce and government used by the ancient Egyptians that was deemed unworthy of the exalted hieroglyphic script. It took until 1822, over 20 years since the Rosetta Stone's discovery, for the elusive hieroglyphs themselves to be translated. With this, the entirety of the ancient Egyptian world was subject to modern analysis and understanding. At last, the hidden and strange world of the pharaohs was brought into the light.